Would you guys join me in a moment of silence, please? Would you guys join me in a moment of silence, please? That's for today. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that, Alex. Alex? Alice. Okay, I said it right the first time. Thank you for that. You know, I'm not a morning person either. I fell asleep about 4:30 and I got up at 6. And I felt like an hour and a half would have been better than 4 hours, you know what I'm saying? So we got that little rush going on, and no sleep rush. And one of the things I think about when I think about these type workshops, they call me and ask me if I do it, and then they said, oh, by the way, it's at 10 o'clock. I'm like, what? Like that. And then somebody called me back and said, matter of fact, it's at 9 o'clock. And, but, you know, when it comes to recovery, no matter how large of a check of how much I do or whatever I give back to Narcotics Anonymous, I'm still behind, or I'm going to use that phrase, I still don't really catch up. You know what I mean? I will never catch up because I look at Narcotics Anonymous kind of like I looked at my mom giving me birth. You know what I mean? I can never really fully repay her. I can never really fully repay Narcotics Anonymous. Right. You know, I was one of them addicts that, I was looking at 10 years prison time one time. Before I came to Narcotics Anonymous, I was able to stay clean for 19 hours and 56 minutes. You know what I'm saying? And I remember thinking, how in the hell a human being can stay straight for a whole day? You know what I'm saying? My clean date's November the 1st, 1986. And that's with the we of Narcotics Anonymous. And as you were wrapping up, I was just thinking about the last time I really wanted to use was November the 24th. Of 86 is your clean date. You know, we got both Novembers, but I was thinking I left the facility, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the we of the program and how it's affected my life tremendously. And one of the things I believe is my higher power don't put more on me than we can handle. You know what I'm saying? And you talked about that, but a lot of times I like to phrase it we can handle because it's really what it is. You know, I got a friend that's doing a workshop next door, and that friend, I remember him coming to South Georgia. You know, I hadn't wanted to use dope, but you know, you talk about violence and sex and all that stuff. Mine's always have, when people die and stuff like that, I'll talk about some of the stages of, you know, grief and stuff like that. But it's always came at me, it normally comes at me with wanting me to act out violently, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, that was one of his favorites always, you know, so. But I got a friend over there doing another workshop, and one of his sons got beat up, and we were at dinner one night, and he kept saying, ask him. He was and I think he wanted his son to ask him to sponsor him, but the kid wouldn't do it. We ate, laughed, talked. He walked out. We talked about everything but that, and he was hanging around with some people, and he was using, and he was a mess himself, you know what I mean? There's a lot of times we say we hang out with the wrong people. I'm like, I was the wrong motherfucker, really, you know what I'm saying? And so was he, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my mom got all my friends one time to go like, where y'all getting all this stuff? Promise you won't tell? We get it from Cecil, you know what I'm saying? So I was one of the wrong ones. I remember getting in trouble when I was little. My dad was like, my mom was like, my son didn't do that. My dad was like, that little motherfucker did it. He did it 12 times before that. I know what he capable of. He just caught his ass this time. I just dropped my head. I'm like, no return on the truth, is it? But my buddy Bob, they would have him come down to Albany where I got clean. Because when I got here, I really wasn't that interested in unsolicited input, swapping numbers, any of that type. You know what I'm saying? And I remember somebody saying, you're powerless over this dude. I'm like, no, I stop him from breathing right now, you know, and stuff, because that's what I came here with, and I really wasn't open to something different, you know. I mean, I just wanted to stop doing this chemical, you know what I'm saying? But that guy would come down, they'd get people to try to talk to him, and that guy was a big old dude over there, man. He'd come down and talk to me about not bringing guns to meetings at people. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It was like I was kind of new, and I didn't really, you know, matter of fact, my first sponsor, by the time I got serious about this program, my first sponsor, there were nine guys in the town I was in, and I got serious about it, and I asked the first 8 guys, and they were like, nah, I don't want to sponsor, but you can have my number right there. So I got them all together and asked them to ask this guy. I'm like, man, tell him he need a sponsee, man. So they got them all together, and they asked him, and I walked up to the guy. I was like, hey, man, I really need to talk to you. Like, I know what you want to talk to me about, and I know what you did, and I know what you're going to ask me. just remember, you asked me, I didn't ask you, I'll do it, and he walked away, you know, but he decided to sponsor me. So and I was really serious about this program at that point. I had just gone back out, and I was in a meeting on a Thursday. I went out, and I said, I'll come back Sunday and pick up a white key tag. Man, I'm driving and going to the meeting. I'm turning, man. Oh, no, for 60 days I couldn't make it back. I made it back 128 pounds. But, you know, he came and he talked to me a lot about, and I went through everything, because I grew up thinking like I can't commit suicide because of the way I grew up. And I'm like, well, I'll just, you know, maybe I can get up to 100 drive to the bridge. If I rob this dealer, I know he murdered people, so maybe. And they didn't even, you know, they didn't let some of the goons murder me, you know what I mean? That was the best thing that I could come up with, you know what I'm saying? And that guy would come to town and ask me, you know, talk to me about not bringing guns and stuff like that into meetings. But that same guy, his son got beat up and put on the train tracks and killed. And I was listening to the news on you know, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, man, who got hit on the train tracks? And then he called me about 7 o'clock, just bawling, man, you know, and we realized somebody had beat him up, shot him, and the conductor said he was trying to get off the track, but they hit him and killed him. They found a little piece of his beeper and stuff, and I ended up getting angry again at that point, like one of the angriest times I had been for a while, you know what I mean? And it was just like, but one of the things I always go back to is the we of the fellowship. You know what I'm saying? That same guy had a woman he was dating, and she went back out, and he was like, well, this kid ain't going to be out there in them streets with you. You come see him anytime you want to, but I'm raising him. He raised the kid, and the kid was, you know, he worked, you know, construction work and iron worker. He was like, I'm the lead. I can't stay out. He'd been sick, and he ended up, long story short, he ended up having an accident and running into a tree, and he died. You know what I'm saying? In a second, but and it was, you know, he was a nice little kid. You know what I'm saying? They were complete opposites, both for the boys. And one of the things I stopped doing in early recovery is I stopped questioning God. But one of the things that happened a little while after that, one of my friends had the only kid she's ever had. She had a kid that was a year and a week old. And I cry, and I don't apologize, because that same motherfucker over there's like, you better be glad you met this motherfucker when he can cry instead of when he couldn't, because I had years where I couldn't laugh or cry, so I apologize to nobody about being, that's one of the things I'm most grateful for, being able to cry. You know what I'm saying? Because it used to come out in other ways. But she had a 1-year-old son, a year and a week old, and she had a grandson that was a year old, a week behind the kid, and they got in the car. They were going to the little baby's birthday. I'm good, Gary, thank you. They were going to the 1-year-old's birthday, and we were going to a friend of ours' 7-year celebration, and me and this girl was riding, and I took one way, and she took the others, and I'm like, I'm just trying to see the timing of it all, and she's like, man, if we were on the left-hand side, we would be, thank you, sir, we would be jammed up. There's a helicopter and everything, you know. And we got to the meeting, and after the meeting, my friend, the only number she really remembered by heart was mine. And somebody, I guess, looking out for his phone and all. So I want to say thanks to the people too that respect the meetings and stuff in their place. You look like Casey Scott to me, and she just would stop a meeting, man. But man, respect the meeting for an hour. This and that. But the guy was reaching out for his phone, and he ran into him. And the husband and my friend was in the hospital, and the little baby, it broke his neck and killed it. You know what I'm saying? So it killed the little baby. But my buddy that I was talking about over there, he said, well, man, you know, no, she ain't really talking to anybody but you, but when you talk to her, tell her to get her ass in some of them meetings and let them people love her back to health. You know, and she went through long periods where she just assumed not be alive, you know what I mean? But she helped more people. Like, it was funny too, because people used to call her to get in touch with me, and then people started calling me like I was on my, hey, I'm your secretary. These people here want you to speak. These people, you know. And she did it, and it was one of the most powerful stuff, because, you know, oftentimes we get high as hell over a feeling. You know what I'm saying? And here there's somebody who's the only child they've ever had just got killed, and they're staying clean through it. You know what I mean? And no matter what club, and one of the things she always said was like, you know, I guess I say this, like, to whom much is given, much is required. Right. You know, a lot of people put a lot of work and energy and effort into helping me stay clean, and she said the exact same thing. She's like, man, for me to go out and use who the fuck is it gonna help? Like, you know what I mean? That's just some selfish shit that's gonna help everybody else. That's nothing but addiction, you know what I mean? So I'm helping nobody by going out and using and all. And it was just kind of, you know, it was beautiful to watch her come and plug in and let the healing begin, you know what I'm saying? Because we go through a lot of different stages with it, you know what I mean? She went back through the anger and all that type of stuff. And way before that, though, it was weird because, wasn't weird, ain't an artist, God. In 97, my pops, I got a phone call. It was weird. That day I was kind of mean to people. Like, and I had no idea why. Everybody was like, man, you normally laughing. You love to laugh all the time. You're mean as shit today like that. I'm like, yeah, I am. I don't know why. But, you know, a few hours later, I got a phone call saying my dad had an accident and died. And to this day, we don't know. Somebody said if you ever own our property, you won't make off alive. So I don't know if he just had an accident, but it looked kind of jacked up, or he just, you know what I'm saying? We believe he got killed. You know, it don't matter. He was gone. But that young lady called me, and she said, you know, do you want company? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, do you want to be alone? I don't know. You know what I mean? Because kind of in a fog. You don't know what the hell you want or need or anything like that. And she and 7 other people came over to the house, and I was able to laugh a little bit and fade out a little bit and laugh a little bit and then talk about, well, we got to buy, and I get ready to say buy the casket. I just lose it. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't even talk to them. And I thought, man, this is exactly what I needed. Like, you know what I mean? Just needed to allow some people to love me back to health, you know, because, you know, I think about what I came in here with. My first sponsor made me not share for 60 days one time. It was like, man, that poison coming out of your mouth, you know, it's going to kill all of us and get all those white kid tags. Like, and you don't share. And he was the only guy that was sponsoring me, so, you know, I had to do what he said do, you know what I'm saying? And I would have to go like 100 miles to get somebody, you know, if not. So I didn't want to do that, you know what I mean? But that guy, man, he was pretty cool. He had me to write on a word a day. Every day for a year and a half when he sponsored me. I moved from Albany up to Atlanta, but man, 9, 10, 12 days in a row, he'd have me right on respect, man. You know, and I couldn't figure it out for a while, but I started to get a little bit of respect. I realized it after a while. I'm like, oh, I get it now, you know, or you get a little bit of time, and then you see yourself in somebody else, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? So that happened, and I'm going to go kind of talk about, I buried, up until last week it was 188, and this week it's 190 people I buried since I've been counting. 190 people. We lost, I had a guy, I was sponsoring this guy one time, so we were at an H&I meeting, right? So, I wasn't sponsoring at the time, we were at an H&I meeting, right? So, I walked in to do some step work with the guy, and I looked, I'm like, Brian, you are in RYDC all the time. I saw a little 14-year-old picture of him, you know. And he's like, yeah, I was. And I said, man, you're going to remember me when I say this. You're always real smart mouth and sarcastic. And I said, remember that night we came in there and we did the H&I meeting? And you had been, because I said to him, you had been in there for about 8 or 9 months. You got out for 2 weeks and you were back in. He's like, yeah, I lived in there. And I remember the time we were going to Panama City. There was a group of us going to Panama City when y'all were locked up in there. And you said, well, I feel sorry for you guys like that. And the girl tapped me like, I get good. So I said, yeah. And then, you know, tonight we're getting ready to leave to go down to Panama City. It's Tuesday, and we're going to come back next Tuesday in time enough to do the meeting. I know y'all will be right here. So he was like, yeah, I remember you said that, because he was locked up here. He said, I feel sorry for you guys. And here he is locked up in RYDC again, you know what I mean? And he said, man, I never picked at you guys again. I said, nothing else sarcastic again. They picked at me for a week. But that same guy, man, somebody walked him up to me. This guy that I was sponsoring, one of his best friends, walked him up to me when he was, I guess, 24 years old. And I began to sponsor him. And I was talking to his ex-wife, I was his wife the other day, and his widow. I was talking to him, and I thought he had been dead 3 or 4 months, but she says March will be a year. But had a talk with him, man, about an hour talk with him, and the most spiritual talk I've ever had with him, known him since he was 14, most spiritual talk I've ever had with him. And a week later, I got a phone call that he had OD'd and died, you know. I mean, if you're in Narcotics Anonymous now, man, just stay, you know what I mean? It's like, I sold a lot of people a lot of stuff. I ain't ever try to kill my customers. You know what I'm saying? Not like that. Not with the you know. not what I'm buying, buying the stuff that, and there's so many people out there, and then the young lady that was 14 years old that was, she lived at her house during the summers and stuff, right? And part of the school year, she was 14. She brought her dad and her brought him to the first meeting. Both of them had 2 kids and a spouse. She ended up texting somebody, I'm gonna try this for the first time, and it was her first and her last time. You know what I'm saying? So, and they both were 37 when we lost them. You know what I'm saying? A week after that, one kid was taking took his daughter and his mom to the airport. Before the plane landed in New York, they're getting phone calls. He's stopped on his way home and got something, and he died. And we had another guy that was at that same home group that found my sponsee in the car outside of work. 2 days later, after his other home group member, they found him in the car dead. You know what I'm saying? So, if you're here, it's best to stay here. You know what I'm saying? And for me, thank God, but for the grace I hadn't wanted to use since I had 23 days clean. Thank God for that. I've wanted to act out a lot of other ways, you know what I mean? And I have acted out some ways, but I don't give in to the anger, you know what I'm saying? It ain't even anger really, it's vengeance. Like, you know what I mean? Just a general principle kind of stuff, like, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to being disrespected or having somebody. When my mom passed away, my dad passed away, somebody broke in the house and attempted to rape my mom. And I had a little sister that was on meds and stuff. And I don't know if I was really angry, but what I did was I sell steaks and stuff for a living. So I drove the truck down to Macon and dropped the freezer off somewhere and went down and tried to find the dude. You know what I mean? I was thinking, God made guns for a reason. Not everybody needs to be. This earth is a little bit better without some people on it. You know what I mean? And I didn't, and I grew up like you don't talk about what you're gonna do. You know what I mean? Don't paper trail. Don't talk about it. And it was weird. I came home 3 days later, and one of my little roommates, he's a younger guy, but he's an old soul. Like, he met me at the bottom of the steps, and he hugged me, and he says, you want me to go? Like, nobody, I guess, knew I had gone, but him, he was like, if you want me to go next time with you, I will. I didn't say a word to him. I didn't say a word to him for 10 years about it. I didn't even tell my sponsor about it for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? We had, those guys were like, man, we need to get together and have a sponsorship. We need to get to have a sponsorship meeting. I'm like, all right, I'll do y'all a sponsorship meeting. Now, I got so much out of that. I remember talking to my sponsor about that 10 years later, and he's like, well, Cece, you got to understand, vengeance isn't ours. You know what I'm saying? But I was stuck in like a reservation about, like, you know what I mean? If I see this guy, I don't know what I'm going to do. I ain't going to talk about it. But once we're not willing to talk about something, that's a dangerous game. You know what I mean? In a we program where we're honest, open-minded, willing, and all that, and we're not willing to affect positive change in the area. You know what I mean? That silence equals death. I don't care how you look at it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people that I've sat in a meeting with that night, one weekend, we were in a meeting, and we went bowling and all that after. One of the nicest guys. Guy went to 6 meetings a week, man, and opened the door, hugged everybody. He and 5 other people relapsed that weekend. My sponsor went to go see his sister at the hospital and looked in this room. This girl was in a coma. He was like, man, that lady's in bad shape. Though later he realized it was one of our friends right down the hall from her. Another guy, he OD'd. He was in a coma. The other 4 people died. It was like 6 people on a Saturday night relapse. 4 of them died. 2 of them ended up in a coma. You know what I mean? The young lady's clean right now, but the other guy's back out again. And one of the things I often talk to him about, I'm like, man, you were in a coma from this thing. You need to help somebody talk about it. You said that a while ago. You need to help somebody and talk about this stuff. But we stay stuck in the shame of not talking about it, or the reservations or whatever, the silence. I don't really do that. And one of the things going on lately though with me is I've had sponsees that I've lost. One of them decided he'd leave here and just go somewhere else and do this, and he was dead in a month. Another one decided he'd leave here and just go do it this way, and he was there in a week. One of them, not that long, a couple of years back, decided he would just not do his dialysis anymore. You know what I'm saying? I guess he was tired. You know what I'm saying? And you're powerless over there. Ain't nothing you could do. You know what I mean? But find somebody else out and try to help them. One of my best friends of 33 years. She had Thursday night. that he's had cancer and he had this and that. He's got another situation going on, but he may not be willing to do any of the treatments. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna call him after this, so just kind of talk to him about, he's done stuff before and he made it through it, and I know it hurts going through it, but he's helped so many people. You know what I mean? So, whatever I might be able to touch him with, I'm gonna try. You know what I'm saying? If he decides to do it, it won't be because some of us didn't try. And I'm gonna call some other people to make sure that. Anyway, but for me, I don't know. I had a buddy. I was listening to a song when I was riding. A buddy of mine named Phil. He was like, "Whoop, that is," and I was listening to that song riding up here. And I'm like, "Phil, you so white, man. You don't even say it right, But Phil got to where he would like eat all the craziest stuff. You know what I mean? They took this out, took that out. He ended up dying, and I guess he was kind of tired of living, so he just did what he needed to do. You know what I mean? To not be here, but one of the things I've done, like I was talking about literature, but I give it away, like different literature. And one of the things that NA really given me the ability to do is, just buy different stuff that pertains to different stuff. And, a lot of times we talk about different stages of grieving. Sometimes people talk about 5, some of them talk about 7 different stages of grieving. But I'm going to just share a little bit about, and one of the things I do with the people that I've loved and lost is I pull up something good about them. You know what I'm saying? I try to pull up something good about them and keep that going. You know what I'm saying? It's because I love I used to I hated seeing anybody on this planet happy. My brother told me, like, man, if somebody happy, you can wipe that smile off their face in 5 seconds, don't you, like that? And he says, and he was like, now you just meet anybody anywhere, because I was doing something, talking to somebody, and my buddy named Claude was like, who is that? I'm like, it was a family of people. I'm like, I don't know. It was like, I don't know, but we were just laughing our butts off, and I really like seeing people smile. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, a lot of laughter and good times that we've given each other, you know what I mean? I'd rather take that with me and sit and stay. Because it's, I was watching something when I had 3 years clean, and it was, I remember a little scene, and it was like, come on, you can't stop now. If you stop now, the sadness of the swamp will swallow you whole. Oh. You know what I'm saying? And this guy was like, that's a crazy story to tell, because the whole time I'm like, well, I'm turning the story around. Like, I was able to share who I was at the moment and get out of that darkness and get my truck and go and get in the fetal position and just balling up. So I didn't let the sadness of the swamp swallow me whole. So, you know what I mean? So I want to pass that on to people. But the process, and part of what I was thinking about with the stages of grieving, and they come in all different kinds of ways. All of them might hit you the same damn time. You know what I mean? But and I have to look at my phone to do it. I don't really want to look at my phone. I want to look at you guys. But you know what I mean? There's different literature out there, and if you want names of different stuff, because going through as much as some of us go through, it's like sometimes it's good to just maybe read this or read that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say that. I don't say I respect Narcotics enough not to say I don't know if it's a tradition violation or not, and I think it isn't. And if I even have 1% thinking it's not, I respect this fellowship enough not to mention it. You know what I'm saying? In a meeting, but I'll talk to you after the meeting about it, because there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of help out there, But that same Thursday when my buddy was saying he don't know if he's willing to do this, I got kind of angry again, because a buddy of mine came up to me and he was either going to have chemo again, or if they wouldn't pay for that, he was going to have to get his tongue cut out and stuff and get on a feed tube and all that. And he shared that with me. He's like, well, they're not going to pay for this, but I got to get my tongue cut out. He's been living with this guy 10 or 12 years. And the guy told him, well, you got to move out of here before you get that done, because I don't want you down up here. And that pissed me off. I don't really get angry that much, but I'm like, man, and really I say pissed off, but it's really hurt. It hurt the shit out of me, you know what I'm saying? But the first thing was like, man, go knock on that guy and kick him in the face. You know what I mean? But you ain't gonna do that, So, but I'm like, how? And he's like, that's got me more fucked up than anything. But I'm like, how shitty is that, though? You know what I mean? But, we have some special relationships around here. Not everybody are able to be special to each other. You know what I mean? So that's why the network of people that we choose in our lives come in much more handier than others. Not everybody brings everything. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I had a young lady tell me years ago, like, man, I wouldn't really fuck with people that don't treat me well, and you treat everybody well, but you just laugh it off and you still hang out with these people. And I took that to heart, you know what I'm saying? We no longer speak or anything, but that was a hell of a statement, like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like still bringing that energy and spirit of people that want to chop you off the knees to see you eye to eye, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's just like, I just ease away from certain people and get away from them, and my life is much better for it, you know. One of the things, I'm going to say this too though, because we'll read like third paragraph of We Do Recover. And I always say, like I treat it like a prayer, but oftentimes on Thursdays, my home group will have a funeral, then we'll have a meeting, and then you hear jails, institution, and death, and sometimes you hear somebody say, "Oh my," like that, and it's so demeaning to the ones that we lose. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know. It kind of, I don't know. It rips my heart out just hearing them make a little, minimizing and making little jokes and stuff like that. But I can't talk enough though about the power of the we of the program. With the young lady I was talking about, when I was 14, her dad and mom and brother, all of us, we're real tight, and the healing seems to be a little bit better. With the young man, there were 4 of them that were real tight, and one of his best friend that walked me over to him, I've been sponsoring him for a year, and then my sponsor 14, when I was sponsoring the other guy for 13, he called me to tell me that he had gone back out after the other guy went back out, and they went through hell with him trying to, help get him clean. He had told me to go back out, and then the next time he called me, and I'm like, "What's going on with you, man? Your head messing with you with all the knowledge you got, and this, that." I was saying different stuff. He's like, "No, that ain't it," and he couldn't tell me. And I got another call from a different sponsor a little later, and he says, "Man, we were laughing and talking." And he's like, "You don't even know what's going on." And he told me that the other guy had OD'd and died, and the other guy could call, and he couldn't even tell me that. He didn't want that to be the first thing that he told me after he told me the other, that he had gone back out after that. And so that group of guys don't come around. So with the We Are the program in our little kind of subsets or something like that, it's important with the healing, you know what I mean? Because that's been more like a kind of open wound, like, you know what I mean? Because like we hurt together, but we heal together. And that little group have just kind of, scrammed and vanished and everything. And one of the guys still clean. I see him once every 3 or 4 months, you know what I'm saying? So, but the We Are the program, man, it's, I always say regardless of who's born, who dies, who goes to college, who goes to prison, who gets out, you know what I mean? If I go back out and use it, any of that stuff, I'm just being part of the problem all over again. And a matter of fact, my family, when my dad died, I told my brother, I was like, I'm going to stop down in Macon and drop off a little meat, sell a little meat like that. And my brother was like, no. If you leave a little bit of money, I'm going to write you a check for this amount and just come on down here. And I'm just like, why were y'all so animal about me coming down? He's like, man, you moved up there with a year and a half clean. Well, you got to realize we knew you for 25 years and we know how you were in this different circumstance. We didn't want to have to try to get you out of jail while we burying dad too. And I'm like, I guess fair enough. You know what I'm saying? He was like, we know you be laughing and hugging everybody now, but man, this isn't normal circumstances, But for me, just sticking with the We Are the program, you know what I mean, and looking at the process of, different stages in grieving, because it's just like trusting the process here. I have friends or sponsors or something call me, and I call them back 2 days later, and man, the sky's falling when they call me, and they call me back a day or two later. They don't even know what the hell they were calling about. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, man, just come, sit on your hand, trust the process, And one of the things I don't really say to people anymore, I remember telling this young lady, like, man, you keep on, you're going to die like this and this, that. And they found in the woods dead. And one of the things I tell people now is I say, just for today. They had me to blueprint my life on that for about 6 months. And that just for today say, I believe in you and I want to help you in your recovery. And I promise you this fellowship will help you if you allow us to help you. You know what I'm saying? So I do that. I ain't going to steal it. Because that's what Narcotics Anonymous said. If I start coming off with like what I want to say or what I think, I can still be 33 years later. It can still be kind of jacked up, So I'm like, what's love? and what's fear? You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's, I just rather assume like taking a moment of silence and look at being firm and strong, because ain't nothing I can really say is gonna treat you any worse than that dope ever will. You know what I mean? It's gonna be 1,000 times worse, but I still try to do it in a loving and caring way. And that it's not always easy for me, because as a newcomer, they would tell me we'd rather piss you off today than to bury you tomorrow, and they would tell me, you know what I mean? They didn't hesitate on telling me, because they had a lot of respect and integrity and stuff like that for the fellowship, and I'm grateful for them today. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't trying to get high and shit, so they didn't want to hear what I had to talk about. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't mind like opening up and saying what they needed to say, and I'm better for it. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't too happy on those days, but sometimes 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about that? But I'm still here today because of some, and I remember some of the harsher stuff more so than I do than the easy, happy-go-lucky. They say our diversity is our strength. I got some guys that I sponsor, people are like, man, I got some truckers. I'm like, well, you know, I was trying to share with you, and I don't think you really heard me, but now you know, you really heard him because you're coming, you know what I mean? Because there's no return on the truth that's come to this fellowship. I always looked at it as a thinking program. And I said, you know what, this is a suggestion program. Once I came in here and started taking the suggestions, they told me there was if I bet my life on Narcotics Anonymous, there was nothing I couldn't get through and go through clean. You know what I mean? And I thank God for that, because by the time Mom died and by the time Dad died, and after the 23 days, I didn't really, I wasn't looking for dope to fix anything ever again, because I knew it didn't. You know what I'm saying? So for me, those reservations about I'm gonna do this if this happens and cause more pain and chaos in everybody. I mean everybody's life. You know what I'm saying? So I was able to get away from that, and I've never felt freer. You know, I started to. I was down in Fort Lauderdale. I might have shared this earlier. I remember I started to laugh after the convention, and I started to cry, and I did it for 4 solid hours. I went down there. I was telling somebody about this morning, but I went down there like I had a gray veil on me, right? And everything seemed kind of gloomy. I'm like, man, sexism, man, it's good. Music's gonna suck, and da-da. And the speaker spoke, right? And I started to laugh, and I only had 9 months clean, so I wasn't really into laughing or crying, especially wasn't into crying. You know what I mean? But I started laughing, and I started crying, and I've never felt freer in my entire life. You know, except when I first came back and I surrendered, and I felt like I walked by the ring and I threw the towel in. And Tyson then beat the shit out of me every single day for like days on end, you know. But that was so, just the spiritual aspect of that was so tremendous, man. And I remember Ed walking up to me and says, you, man, yeah, point of no return, huh? And I'm like, not sure what you're talking about, Ed, but I sure feel different, you know what I'm saying? I was just freer than I'd ever been, and it had to do with a complete surrender. You know what I mean? We're going to lose people here. But the key is, for me, is I was like, yeah, I didn't want to, I'm like, man, I don't want to be at 9 o'clock, but it's just, it wouldn't have been fair for me not to show up with the experience I've had with so many people, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, 4 or 5 people in a week and that kind of crazy, 6 people in a day, you know, Mom, Dad, everybody, my brother, just all kinds of stuff. So, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And, you know, if you go through stuff, one of the things I want to share this to Hush, one of the things I went through with my mom, though, also is sometimes the pain of what happens before the death is a lot heavier than the death sometimes, you know what I'm saying? My mom was in a coma, and the doctors didn't want me to roll her outside. This is in March of 2011. And then, I'm like, well, man, you know, she's been in this hospital here for a long time. I'm going to take her outside, you know. Well, let me talk to the head doctor and see. And I'm like, well, I'll either be in here or I'll be out there. So I took her outside, man, and I called the whole family down for the week and everything. And it was like, you know, she's breathing heavy, not at all, slow for 14-second intervals or something like that. So I took her outside, man, and she had been in a coma for a week or 8 days, actually. And some birds were out there fighting, man. And she came, the birds were just really loud, but she came to. And then after about an hour, and then she looked at me about 45 minutes later. And Mom lived until October. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it was like, I was able to go down to Florida for a week and stay with her for a week at a time, and just let the healing. It was different than Dad's. You know, Dad left like this, but Mom, I was able to love her out of here. You know, and I remember on a Sunday telling her like, well, everybody's coming, honey. If you're tired, go home. And she was gone that Tuesday. But I didn't want to be selfish and be like, I want to keep you here no matter what, you know what I mean? And I was able to just say, if you're tired, honey, go home, you know what I mean? And get next to that, but for me, I say that, Casey used to teach me also, say, if you want the truth at a hospital, get close to a nurse. You know what I'm saying? Because she's like the doctors ain't gonna really tell you much of anything, which is true, you know what I'm saying? So for me, I got close to the nurses, and one of the things one of them did was actually they brought me their book, and it was like they had butchered your mom worse, because they, I was looking at Kobe the other day with the fog, and people, sometimes we don't think that much about fog, but they were gonna fly Mom down to Florida. They was like, well, it's foggy, we got a driver, so they gave her some medicine to keep her main arteries alive, but that medicine eventually killed her fingers, and they were like, oh, this is simple surgery, we'll take them off, and y'all can take her back home, and they put the insulin in the wrong setting, and massive heart attack and a coma again, you know what I'm saying? And and so I thought, man, that left fog made a world of difference. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you were kind of powerless over. We talked to a couple of lawyers and all that stuff, and they take care of themselves. It was hard, you know what I mean, to do anything. But my thing was, like, we need to talk to lawyers and make sure this don't happen to the next family. If nothing happens, we won't get anything out of it or anything like that. But at least another family won't have to go through this same thing. Because one of the things about recovery is, like, you get a lot of empathy and care. Like, you care about people you never even meet, you know what I mean? And one of the things I say about recovery, like, we feel, you know what I'm saying? So for me, just being able to stand up for Mom at that facility, one of the guys were like, well, when they were coming out, she ain't gonna make it through the day, she ain't gonna make it. And I called him outside. I'm like, look, man, my family don't need you in here saying that. Like, and then that was right after that when I took outside, and she lived from March to October, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, they don't really, and then he would stand over and say stuff sometimes, and she could hear, you know what I mean? When I called him outside, I'm like, man, she don't, she can't talk, but I can. You know what I'm saying? And so I need to say this, and can't be too bad with them, though, because they got so much control and power, but I've been taught to stand up and speak up, you know what I'm saying? So, it's like I don't do sitting silently with a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's like I might as well be part of, that problem right there going on. But, I just want to say thank you guys for coming in here, man, and thank you so much for coming and sharing that, because a lot of times, a lot of us, stuff don't really mean that much stuff to us, but, we'll reflect back at certain points in our lives, be like, oh, that's what she was talking about. That's what he was talking about. And that's what we do. We keep what we have by giving it away. A lot of us don't want to be members of these certain fucking clubs, you know what I'm saying? But we don't really have a choice in the matter. So I tell people, man, if you go through some shit, don't be sitting over there silent. I've gone through way too much stuff not to help somebody else with it. You know what I'm saying? I love you guys. Thank y'all for asking me to do this.
My name's Alice. I'm an addict.
Alice.
Truly grateful for another day clean, another day around Narcotics Anonymous. I can't sit and share. And I'm probably going to cry, but it's okay. Just let me feel my feelings. I don't need tissue. I don't need anything. I'm good. But I appreciate concern. So first I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank my God for another day clean. Thank the committee. And Troy for asking me to share. No matter how many times I do this, it still is nerve-wracking. I still get nervous. Half the room is people that I love, and I still get nervous. And I'm not a morning person at all.
Correct.
So 9 o'clock in the morning is the butt crack of dawn for me. And so, there's really only one other place I'd rather be right now, and that's in bed, but that's okay. So losing loved ones, it doesn't even give you an opportunity to slide right into it. You know, it is what it is. When I first got here, my biggest reservation was that if something happened to my mom, that I didn't know if I could stay clean. And, you know, y'all told me to keep coming, don't use no matter what. Y'all told me that our message is that any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way of life. You know, I held on to that any addict because I really didn't think I was like y'all. I was 20 years old. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't drink coffee. You know, like, I really, and if I didn't drink alcohol, I wouldn't smoke dope. You know, so, like, I wasn't like y'all, you know. So I thought. But y'all told me to keep coming no matter what, and you know, you told me that you would love me until I learned how to love myself, and that it didn't matter what or how much I used, it mattered what I wanted to do about my problem. And at the time, I thought my only problem was everybody else telling me what to do.
Okay.
So, you know, when I first got here, I thought the death of a loved one would be it. You know, that would be my excuse to go back out. And I honestly can't remember how much time I had when my first sponsor lost her mother, and she didn't get high, and she was a hardcore dope fiend, you know, like she was one that I knew if she could, you know, if she could do it, wow. And she had like 7 brothers and sisters, and almost all of them got high except for I think 3 at the time were clean, and so that was really powerful for me. I also consider myself hard-headed because it doesn't matter how many times you tell me that that's hot. I think it's because you just didn't do it right, and so I can touch it and it won't be hot for me. And so even with that, a lot of times the example wasn't enough to tell me that I didn't have to go through that. So I experienced loss, but my first major loss was in 2009 is when it started. And, you know, they say losses happen in threes, and for my family that year, from March of 2009 until January of 2017, I lost 4 people that were an everyday part of my life, but total I went to, I believe, 12 funerals. The first one was my first cousin's wife. We were close. We did things together all of the time. They have 2 children. One is, you know, about 6 months older than my daughter, and one was 6 months younger than my daughter. And the 3 of them, you know, got along really well. I worked 12-hour shifts, so my daughter would go to their house after school. She spent a lot of time with them, and we were together on Saturday night. On Monday morning, she was dead in the stairwell at work. No explanation, no nothing, just gone. Devastating. But by that point, I had gone through some things that made me feel like this program works, and that I didn't have to use, even with that. So that was March. May of that same year, Memorial Day weekend, I get 3 phone calls. Maybe it was 2. My great aunt, my great uncle, and my dad were all 3 in the same hospital on different floors, all dealing with different aspects of cancer. My great aunt and my great uncle were my daycare for my daughter when I first went back to school when she was born. And then when they started getting sick and she had to go elsewhere for daycare, once she got a little bit older, where it was more like she was babysitting them, but they didn't know it. You know, she spent all of our extra time was with them. She was their reason to get up and function during the day. So my aunt came home that weekend. They ended up in the hospital. Week 2 later, my aunt came home on hospice. There was no more treatment for her. Her cancer had come back for a 3rd time. My uncle came home on home care. His cancer had metastasized to his liver. It was slow growing. There was treatment for him, but he refused treatment because there was no treatment for her. And my dad came home with a new cancer in the other lung, and started chemo. And I'm a nurse, and so by this time I'm taking care of all of them. My dad liked to say that I went from the nosy daughter to the knowledgeable daughter. Everything was consumed with taking care of them. My dad did chemo, did great, didn't have a lot of side effects. By the end of the summer, he was cancer-free according to all the scans. We spent the whole summer running back and forth. My aunt would call and say, "Today's the day." I would leave work. I would get to the house to spend those last hours with her, and she had gotten a new, breath of life, and would be outside on the back porch laughing and carrying on. I wouldn't change it for the world, but at the same time, it was one of the hardest summers of my year. My aunt died in August, the end of August. In November, we found out my dad's cancer was back. They wanted to try radiation. The first day that he went to radiation, he got to the hospital and couldn't get out of the car. His legs had stopped working. He said, "We'll try again tomorrow." The doctor said, "No, we need to bring hospice in." I had to have the conversation, "Dad, no, there's no tomorrow. We're not going to try tomorrow. We're going to make you comfortable. We're going to get you home and get you comfortable." He still, for the next 2 months, kept telling the grandkids and the nieces and nephews about how as soon as he felt better, they were going to go camping. I don't know if he ever accepted that he wasn't going to make it. That was November. January 17th, my dad died. It was a Sunday morning. The Thursday before, we were laying in bed together, just loving on him. He told me it was time for me to go home, that I need to go home and spend some time with my daughter. And then he proceeded to ask me, did I see, Uncle John, who died 15 years earlier, over there, and my aunt, who just died in August, over there. And, when I started crying, he said, "Why are you crying?" My dad was a matter-of-fact guy. He told me from the time I was a little girl that the only thing that's certain in life is taxes and death. Mm-hmm. You have to pay your taxes and everybody's going to die. He used to take my daughter to funerals, and people would say, "Why do you let her go to funerals?" And it's like, because this is a part of life. This is what's going to happen to all of us at some point. And the beauty of it was, like, even though he didn't have acceptance that it was his time, we did have those conversations about, like, he was happy with his life and that he was ready to go if it was his time. And, we were able to talk about what he wanted with his funeral and what he wanted to wear, and and he saw how we had done the other funerals, and was able to pick things out that he wanted, and so I was able, for the most part, to give him everything he wanted. The only thing I wasn't able to do was his headstone the way he wanted, and that was because of his brothers and sisters. And but even that, I feel like he knows that I did the best I could, and he would be proud of what we did, because it didn't really matter. So my dad died on Sunday morning, and my uncle died that Thursday. Crazy thing about that was, from the time my uncle was sent home, he had a touch of dementia, and he claims that he and my aunt always had an agreement that that he would die first. So he was like really angry that she died first. But from the time he was sent home, he kept telling everybody, all the nurses that would come to visit him, he said, "Yeah, the doctor said I was going to die on Thursday." So it became a running joke in our family that, if we got to Friday, well, at least it wasn't this Thursday. And it was the craziest thing, because he died on Thursday morning, the day that we buried my dad. So, lots of emotions, and it was hard. At that point, that was the biggest loss that I had experienced. And what happened was, the fellowship surrounded me and carried me through. Back home in Detroit, there's people that don't leave the block. And there were people that don't leave the block that came, the 45 minutes to an hour into the suburbs where where we buried my dad in order to support me. That meant the world to me. You know, that was another, maybe I don't have to use if things happen to me, you know. By this point, I had already bought in. I had already like I was already part of the no matter what club. I'm not using no matter what. But that year of losses, there were days that I was just, like feeling like, okay, God, this is more than I can handle. And you said you would never give me more than well, he didn't say it, but everybody else says God doesn't give us more than you can handle, and so like, I don't know who you think I am, but I'm telling you, I think that this is a little bit more than I can handle, but just like everything else, it brought me closer to my God. It made me rely more on God. Not understanding at the time that, like I could always look at the miracles and the coincidences that happen around here, like when God does for me what I can't do for myself, when God removes me out of situations that I wouldn't leave if he, didn't make it that way, and things like that. Like, not grasping how great God is. Not grasping that God was preparing me all along for everything else that happened since then. Not too long after that, I decided to leave the hospital. It was too much sad stuff going on. I was really quite depressed, really struggled with feelings and emotions after that. At the same time, I had a young teenager, 2010, so she was like 12. That was told by somebody stupid that she needed to be strong for her mom. And it wasn't until maybe 6 months to a year later, when she had so much chaos and confusion going on in her life, that I said, what is going on? Like, where have you gone? Why are you not talking to me? Why are you so defiant and angry? And she said, because I have to be strong for you, and I don't know how. And I told her, no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. I'm strong for you. I have my sponsor. I have my people. I have the fellowship that's strong for me. You don't have to be strong for me. Mm-hmm. So that just was the beginning of her not knowing how to deal with her emotions, her feelings. Sometime during that time, she was abused sexually by an older boy at the park. She didn't tell me. By the time she told me, by the time her friend told me, it was because she was acting out sexually, and I couldn't figure out why she was putting herself in all these bad situations, bringing boys to my home while I'm at work, messing with older boys. She had gotten so defiant that I actually had to charge her with domestic violence. So CPS was involved in our home, which, I welcomed them with open arms. Please help me figure out what to do with this little girl. But at the same time, it always comes back to me, right? And what the problem and the answer is always in me, and what am I doing? And what I found out during that time was, even with many years clean, because my clean date is November 24th, 1993. And so we're talking 2010, 2011, 2012, I'm like 17 years clean at that point. And even with many years clean, I didn't have very good, healthy coping skills. When we were going to therapy and we were talking about things that she could have been doing instead of the things she was doing, the therapist said, well, what do you do when you don't want to feel? Or what do you do when you're struggling? I sleep, I eat, I have sex, I go to a meeting. Like, there wasn't a lot of good, healthy coping skills there. And just imagine how devastating that was to me, thinking that I'm doing stuff so great, and yet all these years clean, I'm finding out that I'm still, feeds into that whole low self-esteem and low self-worth, because I'm still a piece of shit and I can't even be a good parent clean, right? And then to top it all off, I break rules at work, and so I lose my job. And so I'm, depressed, lost my job. I just moved 2 hours from all of my support group. I'm working at the treatment center, even though I know that treatment centers and NA aren't the same thing. All of my self-worth is in this position that I hold at the treatment center. My friend in the meetings just fired me. So to me, I didn't just get fired from the treatment center. I got fired from NA. I got, I just couldn't even figure out how to try to save my ass and my face at the same time. I wasn't plugged in the fellowship up there. The couple times that I went to meetings up there, it just wasn't what I was used to. It wasn't what I knew. It was a lot of young white people, and by then, 17 years clean, I wasn't young anymore, or at least I wasn't considered young anymore, and it was different, and I didn't get plugged in, and so I got more caught up in the depression, in trying to save my daughter. The only good thing that came out of all of that was the time and the energy and the means to be able to do therapy. And to try to get her some help, but also to get me some help. I wasn't in denial at that point anymore. Like, I needed help just as much as she did, because how can I help her when I can't help myself? And, she also had started suicide attempts, suicide threats. I think it was more threats than anything, just, because she wasn't a dumb little girl. Even the time that she attempted suicide, she went in the medicine cabinet and took took a little bit of each medicine that was in there. But she didn't take the Benadryl because she knew it would make her sleepy. And, she took my vitamins, and there wasn't really much in there because I'm a recovering addict and I don't keep stuff in the medicine cabinet except cold stuff. So she was even smart about how she did it, but we still went through all of the motions. I still took her to the hospital, still had her stomach pumped, made her drink the charcoal, hoping that would keep her from doing it again. And so then after that she would threaten, and she would just tell me how miserable she was and how she didn't want to live. And at one point we had the conversation that if anything were ever to happen to you, and I always said, God forbid, I would have to figure out how to live without you. I would have to. I can't curl up in a ball and die with you. So I would have to figure out how to live without you. Never in a million years did I know that I would have to live that. October 22nd, 2019, 2 days before her 21st birthday, my daughter overdosed. For anybody in here that says that they're not putting fentanyl in cocaine, they're not putting fentanyl in marijuana, they're not putting fentanyl in whatever, they are. A friend of hers brought her cocaine with fentanyl. Talk about the hardest thing that you might ever go through. But again, God had a plan. God was doing everything that he needed to do to put me in a position to be able to handle it when it happened. A couple years prior, God gave me a job that allows me to travel across the United States. A couple years prior, God got me back involved in the program. Actually, in 2012, I had a suicide attempt. And for me, it was the jarring experience that the book talks about that sometimes leads us back to a more rigorous, honest program. Thank God I didn't have to relapse physically. But that spiritual hell was enough that I got back involved in the program. I got a new sponsor. I started working steps. I was doing therapy. I started doing convention committees. I started doing H&I, going into the jails, I really, really got involved. And in the process of really getting involved, I started meeting people. I started traveling. I started calling. I'm coming to such and such. Who do you know? You know, I got connected all across the United States. Everywhere I go to meetings. If I don't know somebody before I get there, I get on Facebook and I say, I'm coming to such and such. Who's there? You know, I call my friends. Who's there? You know, like right now I'm looking around and there's people from Ohio. There's people from Detroit. There's people from New York. There's people from Sacramento that I've met in the rooms just by going to meetings. My friend from Sacramento, he didn't even know there was a convention going on this weekend. He posted he's going to see his mom. I'm like, we're right there at the convention. Come up and see us. You know, like that's one of the things I love about social media is that it gives us the opportunity to connect with people. I have friends on social media that I've never met, but we're family because we're part of this. And so, you know, like everywhere I go, I post pictures, never alone, never again. And generally, it's like after I've made an out-of-town meeting, I'm back at the hotel or I'm back at the job because when I work crazy hours. So I always plug in. I always go to meetings. I get a meeting list. I get phone numbers. You know, I ask for help. And so, never alone, never again. I didn't know the definition of it till my daughter died. I was in San Diego. I got the phone call. I don't know how I got to the airport. I know I almost wrecked twice. I realized a week later I never put gas in the rental car. I get to the airport. All the way to the airport, I'm on the phone first with my family, then with my best friend, with my sponsor, you know, just anybody. Sitting in the airport with a blanket wrapped around me, just sobbing. I get on the flight. And, well, first thing that happened was I talked to the medical examiner before I got on the flight, and I said, I'm on my way. You know, I have to see her when I get there. And he said, no, her body's already been identified. You can come, but you won't be able to see her. Again, God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because all I wanted to do was see my baby. I get on the flight, and I don't know why I fly all the time. And with Delta, I should be able to do iMessages, and I should be able to do Facebook messages. All I got to do is connect to the internet. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't watch a movie. I couldn't do nothing on my phone that day. So all I was left with was me and my thoughts. Thank God I was able to sleep part of the way. But I got to Detroit, and my sister, my niece, and a good friend were there waiting for me. From that point forward, I was not left alone until, that was, I believe, a Tuesday. I wasn't left alone until the following Thursday when I got in the car to drive to Erie, Pennsylvania for a convention. And they knew that people were there waiting for me. Again, I don't always have the best coping mechanisms. So, you know, like I just wanted to be alone part of the time. I wanted to not feel, so I wanted to have sex. I wanted to be able to escape. So at one point I say, y'all gonna be really embarrassed if y'all don't give me some time to do what I need to do for me. But even that, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and and just kept me surrounded by people that loved me. I haven't talked a lot about my daughter's father. He went to prison. I got pregnant in February, being told that I might never be able to get pregnant. I moved to Pensacola, Florida in March with my job. He went out on a bender, ended up in the homeless shelter. Maybe April, May, he ended up in Huntsville, Alabama with his mom. August, he married a girl that the last 4 months we were together, he was writing and talking to and laying up in my bed while I was at work, plotting that when he got back to Alabama they were going to be together. She was young, she was 18, he was like 30. She had no idea he was an addict. He got to Alabama and they got married in August. I found out for sure that my daughter was his she was born in October. I found out in November. In January, he killed her. his wife. Thank God he didn't love me as much as he loved her. So I think my daughter was almost 5, right before her 5th birthday when she met her dad. I took her to the prison in Alabama. All she wanted her whole life was a relationship with her dad. And I did the best that I could to make sure that she knew his family and that she had a relationship with them. He was released from prison. May of last year. Her boyfriend took her to Alabama. She was there when he got out. They spent a week together. It was everything she wanted, all the things that he promised her over the years. She thought she was really going to be able to have a relationship with her dad. By her birthday, October of last year, he was back in he didn't go back to prison, but he went back because he violated. He came to Michigan 7 or 8 days before she died, and still couldn't get together, still using. The Sunday morning before she died, they went to breakfast and got in a big fight. Even with all of this, I still allowed him to be a part of everything. And in the end, he, I wasn't prepared for this. I could have cashed out everything I had and paid for it. But by the grace of God and all of you people, everybody across the world said, let us help you. Let us do what we can do. People sent money. His mother was going to give us $1,000 for the funeral. He stole the $1,000 from his mother that weekend. But, when I was on that plane and I was trying to figure out what was I going to do, God kept whispering in my ear, I got you. I got you. This is where all of the things that you do to help so many people come back. This is where giving away what we have been given so freely comes back to us. This is where doing the right thing for the right reason comes back to us. This is where the unconditional love of the fellowship comes back to us. So I didn't worry. I remember being at the funeral home, and the man said, how do you plan to pay for this? And I said, honestly, I don't have any idea. But God told me, don't worry. And he said,
that's nice, but
he said, I admire your faith. However, you understand that we expect payment on Sunday, right? And my answer to him was, well, then let's make these decisions so I can get a total so I can get to work. My dad just got a headstone like 2 years ago. All these years he hasn't had a headstone. My daughter's headstone was delivered a month ago. God, all of you, all of my friends, everybody has just stepped up. The same thing like with my job. My job is contract. Nothing is guaranteed. I had commitments every weekend this month. I've worked 1 week this month at my job, but all of my bills are paid. Everything that I've needed to do has been taken care of. I've had people ask me why I've traveled so much since my daughter died. And again, I believe that it was part of my higher power's plan. She died October 22nd. The last week in October, I was in Erie, Pennsylvania at the convention. I had a speaking commitment. I kept my commitment because what else am I supposed to do? Right. I'm a huge advocate for it's easier to stay here than it is to get here. Mm-hmm. So my new saying is it's easier to stay up than it is to get up. If I sit down too long, I'm going to get in the fetal position. And if I get in the fetal position, I don't know that I have enough strength to get up. Mm-hmm. So if I don't get in the fetal position by myself, I have the strength of all of you to keep me up.
That's right.
So that's what I've been doing. I already had trips that were paid for, planned. It wouldn't have made a difference if I had stayed home. Where is a better place to grieve than in frickin' Barbados?
Right.
You know, like I had been planning that trip for over a year. I was so excited to have a passport and be going someplace. I went to Barbados. My dear friend was supposed to do the Friday Night Main in Barbados. He wasn't able to speak. He had enough faith in me and all of my pain to ask them to allow me to share. I'm not a frickin' main meeting sharer. I was just like, I sat there just shaking my head like, no, I'm supposed to do a workshop tomorrow. And they're like, no, we need you to do this tonight. And it was such a freeing experience. You know, that's what this has allowed me to do. Like, I've shared so much, and this is the last workshop I'm going to allow them to give me on death and dying and all of that, because it's not who I am. I'm not going to stay stuck in this. I cannot stay stuck in this. I have to find a way. And, you know, and I truly believe that being able to tell Kayla's story, it's the first time I've been able to say her name when I'm sharing. Being able to tell Kayla's story, if it just helps one person to stay clean, if it just helps one person to know that all it takes is one more. She was 20 years old. She said, Mom, I know you got clean at 20, but I'm not ready. But she had all the literature.
Right.
Yes, she did.
She had a sponsor.
Yeah, right.
She had people that she knew that she could call that loved her because they loved me. I am just truly grateful. I'm truly grateful. Would I change anything? Hell yeah, I would change a lot. Some days my disease still whispers in my ear, what kind of recovering addict are you? You couldn't even save your own daughter. But then I'm reminded that that's not what this disease is all about. This disease wants to keep me sick. It wants me to think that I have some control over somebody else. I don't. What I have to tell the disease is that my daughter knew this program worked for her mom. And she told everybody that everywhere she went. All I can do is continue to be an example, because what would I be now if I said fuck it and got high? Like, what would it solve? Honestly, I don't think about using. Some days I think about dying. Just because I want to see my baby again. But even with that, I know it's not my time. And I know that God doesn't do anything before his time. And I have to, like, that's been the biggest thing about my sponsor that I have now, is her faith in God is so amazing. And she reminds me on a regular basis that my God loves me more than I could ever imagine. More than I love my daughter. And I can't imagine anything greater than the love that I had for my daughter. And so just the idea that God loves me more than that, I have to believe that he's taking care of me and that he's going to continue to take care of me. There's too much proof in the way that I live. So I'm just really grateful. Thank you all for showing up. I wasn't sure I was going to show up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I threatened that I was going to show up in my pajamas. I didn't. I got up, I washed my face, I got dressed. I knew I was going to cry. I put on makeup anyway. You know, I'm truly grateful.